Hello, citizens of Geekville. This is Seth, a.k.a. Zandrax, the mayor of Geekville and the host of Geekville Radio. And today we are counting down the top 20 geek heroes of all time. These are the icons, the ones who crawled out of comics, movies, cartoons, and TV screens and painted a flag in the collective unconscious. Agree or disagree? Either way, buckle up. Before we get into it, 2 caveats. Caveat number 1, no superheroes. So no Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, or any of the like. If we open this list of superheroes, you'd end up with 15 caped characters and 2 guys with swords, and that's not a top 20 geek heroes list. That's just a DC versus Marvel argument with a countdown attached. Superheroes are their own category. They will get their own list. So moving on to caveat 2. Only 1 character per franchise. So only 1 Jedi, 1 Starfleet officer, 1 wizard. This rule exists because without it, half this list would be Star Wars and Star Trek characters, and the other half would be arguing about what Star Wars and Star Trek characters got left out. So we're going with the best representative per universe. So with that established, let's start counting.
Number 20, Ash Williams.
When the apocalypse arrives, wrapped in Kandarian demons, possessed trees, and whatever fresh nightmare the Necronomicon cooked up this week, you want exactly 1 man in your corner. Ash Williams, played by Bruce Campbell across the Evil Dead trilogy and the Starz series Ash vs. Evil Dead. Ash is living proof that you don't need to be smart, trained, or emotionally stable to be a hero. You just need to be too stubborn to die. His arsenal is the stuff of legend. The boomstick, a 12-gauge double-barreled Remington with walnut stock, cobalt blue steel, $199.95 at S-Mart, Shop Smart. He's got a chainsaw bolted directly onto the stump where his right hand used to be, and he has a Winchester model 1894 for when he's feeling old-fashioned. He's no chosen one. He's just an S-Mart stock boy thrown headfirst into cosmic horror, and every flaw is on full display. Cowardly on contact, arrogant at exactly the wrong times, and bad at nearly everything except the one thing that matters, killing deadites. But he never quits. Yo, she-bitch, let's dance. That's not a line a hero writes in advance. It's what falls out of a man who's simply run out of options and decided to lean into it.
Number 19, Scooby-Doo.
50-plus years on, Scooby-Doo is still solving mysteries and still making unmasked villains complain about those meddling kids. Debuting in 1969, Scooby is the talking Great Dane companion to Norville Shaggy Roberts. Yes, Shaggy's real name is Norville, which explains a few things. But with Velma Dinkley, Daphne Blake, and Fred Jones, they form Mystery Inc., amateurs who cannot take a road trip without running into a ghost pirate or some situation like that. What earned Scooby a spot here isn't the solving, it's the contrast. He is by every measurable standard a coward. He shakes, he hides, and absolutely does not want to be here. And yet, when the chips are down, usually for the price of a Scooby snack, he finds the nerve. Bravery from someone who was never brave to begin with is worth more than courage from someone born without fear.
Number 18, Connor MacLeod.
There can be only one.
In this case, this one is at 18. Connor MacLeod of Clan MacLeod, played by Christopher Lambert in the original 1986 film, is an immortal Scottish swordsman born in the 16th century. Christopher Lambert is French, by the way. So a Frenchman playing a Scotsman, don't ask. He discovers he cannot die except by decapitation. That's the rule. That's the game. When one immortal kills another, they absorb their power in an eruption called the Quickening, and the last one standing claims a prize powerful enough to reshape the world. Connor spends centuries wandering through history, falling in love, and watching everyone he cares about age and die, while he stays the same. His mentor, the impossibly named Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, played by Sean Connery, yes, a Scotsman playing an Egyptian Spaniard, don't ask, but Ramirez teaches him the way of the sword and the weight of what he is. What makes Connor a geek hero isn't the immortality or the swordsmanship. It's the tragedy underneath both. A man who has to keep loving people knowing exactly how it ends, century after century, and chooses to anyway.
Number 17, Dick Tracy.
Before Batman even stalked a comic panel, there was Dick Tracy. Debuting in the Funny Pages in 1931, loosely inspired by the real Prohibition-era lawman Eliot Ness, Dick Tracy set the gold standard for the hard-boiled detective before Raymond Chandler made it cool. The yellow trench coat, the angular jaw, the fedora, instantly iconic. But the real underrated flex, his two-way wrist radio, introduced decades before anybody was walking around with a computer on their wrist. His rogues gallery of grotesquely named villains, Flat Top, The Blank, Prune Face, set the template for colorful comic antagonists that Batman's writers were basically copying by the 1940s. Tracy has been shot at least a dozen times in print, including once in the head, and he keeps going. Without superpowers, just grit, a good coat, and the kind of stubborn dedication to the law that makes him the direct ancestor of every procedural detective that came after.
Number 16, Malcolm Reynolds.
If someone tries to kill you, you try and kill them right back. That's Mal in one sentence. Played by Nathan Fillion, Mal is the captain of the Firefly-class transport Serenity in Joss Whedon's criminally canceled 2002 series. A veteran of the Unification War who fought on the losing side against an authoritarian alliance, Mal carries that defeat like a stone in his chest. It's why independence matters to him more than almost anything else. Serenity isn't just a ship. It's the only home he has left, and the crew of smugglers, mercenaries, a preacher, and a fugitive doctor become the family the war took from him. He'll lie, steal, and cut every corner necessary to keep his people fed and flying, but he'll absolutely go to war for them. That contradiction, the honorable outlaw, the cynical man with a code, is exactly why fans were still campaigning to bring his show back 20 years after Fox canceled it after 11 episodes. 11 episodes.
Number 15, Mothra.
Yes, Mothra. And before you side-eye that, consider this. The whole question is, who is a hero? And Godzilla does not qualify. Godzilla is mostly a force of destruction who occasionally points himself at something worse. Mothra, on the other hand, has been Earth's guardian in nearly every single appearance since her 1961 debut. She's worshipped on Infant Island, represented by twin priestesses called the Shobijin, and she will hunt down anyone who threatens them across entire oceans. She can fly at supersonic speed, generate hurricane winds, fire energy blasts from her antenna, and shed razor scales as ranged weapons. She's fought Godzilla and won. She's fought alongside him when Earth needed it. She sacrificed herself in a suicide ram attack when the situation called for it. And here's the part that makes her genuinely mythic. She's functionally immortal. Every time she dies, a new egg hatches. Mothra doesn't just protect the Earth, she comes back to protect it over and over again.
Number 14, Buffy Summers.
Buffy Ann Summers is the chosen one. Except the whole point is that there's only supposed to be one chosen one at a time. And Buffy spends 7 seasons breaking that rule. Created by Joss Whedon and played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, Buffy is a vampire slayer with supernatural strength, speed, and fighting instinct, stationed on the Hellmouth beneath Sunnydale, California, which is basically the worst zip code in America. What made Buffy revolutionary in 1997 was the inversion. The blonde cheerleader girl in the horror movie isn't the victim that gets slaughtered in the first act. She is the one doing the killing. She also has homework, a mother, breakups, jobs, and an increasingly complicated love life with a vampire with a soul, which is its own category of problem. Backed by Willow, Xander, and her watcher Giles, Buffy redefines what a hero looks like, and in the series finale, she makes a choice that changes everything. Instead of staying the only Slayer, she shares the power with every potential Slayer on Earth. That's not a power move, that's a philosophy.
Number 13, Optimus Prime.
When Transformers launched simultaneously as a toy line, a comic, and a cartoon in 1984, it was full court press of Saturday morning marketing. And somehow, out of that commercial avalanche, emerged a character with genuine moral weight. Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots, is defined in every incarnation by one thing: an unshakable code. He refuses to sacrifice innocent lives for victory. He fights alongside his troops rather than commanding them from safety. He will lay down his life before he compromises the mission. Equipped with the matrix of leadership and transforming into a red Freightliner cab-over semi-truck, Optimus Prime became the pop culture shorthand for what principled leaders look like. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings isn't a tagline. It's the thesis of an entire character, and kids in 1984 absorbed it whether they realized it or not.
Number 12, Fox Mulder.
I want to believe FBI Special Agent Fox Mulder, played by David Duchovny across 9 seasons, 2 films, and a revival, is the true believer at the center of the X-Files. A man who chases aliens, government conspiracies, cryptids, and decades-spanning cover-up with an obsessiveness that costs him his career, his relationships, and occasionally his grip on reality, but never his conviction. Nicknamed Spooky by colleagues who do not mean it kindly, Mulder is paired with the skeptical, scientifically grounded Dana Scully, and their partnership became one of the defining duos of the 1990s television. What makes Mulder a hero rather than just a crank is the clarity of his purpose. He's not chasing aliens for fame or curiosity. His sister was taken when he was 12, and he has spent his entire adult life trying to find out why. In an era where conspiracy content is everywhere, Mulder remains the genre's original and definitive true believer.
Number 11, Sherlock Holmes.
No detective in fiction casts a longer shadow than Sherlock Holmes. Created by Arthur Conan Doyle in 1887, Holmes is the original consulting detective, a man so devoted to logic and observation that he can reconstruct a stranger's biography from the mud in their boots and the calluses in their hands. Operating from 221B Baker Street, with his friend and chronicler Dr. John Watson, Holmes solves cases that baffled Scotland Yard using nothing but his intellect and an encyclopedic knowledge of everything from tobacco ash to obscure poisons. He's moody, antisocial, occasionally drug-dependent, and famously condescending. Basically the prototype for every brilliant but difficult protagonist that followed him, from Gregory House to Rust Cole. He's been adapted more times than almost any fictional character in history, and his rivalry with Professor Moriarty set the template for the heroes versus archenemy dynamic that every franchise since has borrowed. Conan Doyle tried to kill him in 1893. Reader outrage was so severe that he had to bring Holmes back 9 years later. The character was literally too popular to die.
Number 10, He-Man.
By the power of Grayskull!
Prince Adam of Eternia raises his enchanted sword, calls down the magic of Castle Grayskull, and becomes He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe, at least according to He-Man. What's quietly fascinating about this character is the restraint built into him by his circumstance. Under the Filmation cartoon's broadest standards, He-Man wasn't allowed to punch, kick, or use his sword offensively against any living enemies, only robots. So the writers had to get creative, and what emerged was a hero who wins through problem-solving, strength of will, and moral example as often as brute force. Though it is worth mentioning that the only person He-Man ever seems to punch is you, the viewer, in the intro to the show, right after he introduces himself. His sword is effectively indestructible, and the literal key to his transformation. His arch-nemesis Skeletor reportedly fears killing him, worried it would only create a martyr. Later adaptations let him fight more aggressively, but the core of the character never changed. A leader so principled that his enemies have to think twice about winning.
Number 9, Ellen Ripley.
Warrant Officer Ellen Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver, redefined what an action hero could look like when Alien hit theaters in 1979. The sole human survivor of the Nostromo's xenomorph encounter, Ripley spent the first film simply trying to survive, and surviving it required more composure, smarts, and nerves than most action heroes display in their entire franchises. By James Cameron's 1986 sequel, Aliens, she'd become something else entirely. A woman who straps into a cargo loader exosuit and goes toe-to-toe with an alien queen to protect a little girl she's known for about 48 hours.
Get away from her, you bitch!
What makes Ripley a hero and not just a survivor is her refusal to leave anyone behind. She went back for the cat, Jonesy, when any other rational person would have been on the escape shuttle already. She's cloned, infected, and pushed past every limit the franchise can invent, and she keeps going. Decades later, she's still routinely ranked among the greatest movie characters ever committed to film, regardless of genre.
Number 8, Snake Eyes.
When G.I. Joe relaunched in 1982, no character seized the imagination quite like Snake Eyes, the silent, all-black-clad commando ninja whose identity stayed classified for years. A master of ninjutsu, trained alongside his eventual arch-enemy, Storm Shadow, under the same sensei, Snake Eyes lost his voice and much of his face due to combat injuries and communicates through sign language. A loyal wolf named Timber, and sheer presence. The appeal of Snake Eyes is built on a single, perfect premise. Anyone can move quietly in darkness. Snake Eyes can move quietly at noon, on gravel, with no cover. That combination of tragic backstory, ninja mystique, and quiet menace made him not just G.I. Joe's breakout character, but one of the definitive figures of the entire 1980s action toy era. His original 1982 figure was sold with 0 paint applications and no file card portrait because Hasbro hadn't finished designing him yet. That might be the most accidentally on-brand origin story for a secret agent in toy history.
Number 7, James Bond.
He's killed, seduced, and quipped his way through more than 60 years of cinema, and he's not done. Created by Ian Fleming in 1953's Casino Royale, Agent 007 is Britain's most famous fictional spy, a licensed killer working for MI6 against a rotating cast of megalomaniacs with an entire ecosystem built around him. The gadgets from Cube, the Aston Martins, the Martinis shaken not stirred, and a theme song for practically every film. What separates Bond from a generic action hero is the cultural machinery. Across more than 25 films and starring a string of actors from Sean Connery through Daniel Craig, Bond has been reinvented repeatedly to match the decade. Cold War cool, then campy excess in the Moore years, then post-9/11 grit with Craig, while remaining recognizably the same character. Charming, lethal, and impossible to keep down. The franchise has outlasted most of its actual geopolitical conflicts it originally reflected.
Number 6, Harry Potter.
The Boy Who Lived turned a children's book series into the best-selling book franchise in history and one of the highest-grossing film series of all time. Created by J.K. Rowling, Harry starts the story as an orphaned boy living in a cupboard under the stairs, discovered on his 11th birthday that he's a famous wizard, and spends the next 7 years at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry slowly uncovering the prophecy that ties his fate to Lord Voldemort. What makes Harry resonate as a hero isn't raw power. He's frequently outmatched, and Hermione is objectively the better student. It's loyalty, sacrifice, and the refusal to back down when the entire wizarding world doubts him. Few fictional characters have shaped a generation's entire childhood as thoroughly as Harry Potter, and the cultural footprint is going to be felt for a very long time.
Number 5, Indiana Jones.
Dr. Henry Jones, Jr., born July 1st, 1899, if you're keeping track. Professor of archaeology by day, globe-trotting relic hunter by choice, and living proof that tweed and a bullwhip can be a perfectly viable career combination. Brought to life by Harrison Ford under Steven Spielberg's direction in 1981's Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indy is instantly recognizable by the battered fedora, the leather jacket, and the scar on his chin that he got from a whip as a kid. He's terrified of snakes, which is inconvenient given how many snake-adjacent situations archaeology apparently involves. What makes Indy extraordinary is the absurdity of the alternate history he inhabits. He's crossed paths with Pancho Villa, Al Capone, Teddy Roosevelt, Thomas Edison, and in possibly the greatest throwaway gag in the franchise, had his diary signed by Adolf Hitler, who apparently did not read the room. He's not invincible. He talks and improvises his way out of trouble as often as he fights his way out, and he treats every artifact with a reverence that makes the stakes feel real, which is the trick that holds this whole thing together.
Number 4, Gandalf.
Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf the White, the Pilgrim, Mithrandir, Aloran, and a handful of other names across several thousand years of Middle-earth history. Created by J.R.R. Tolkien for The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Gandalf is one of the Astari, angelic beings sent to oppose the Dark Lord Sauron without ruling Middle-earth themselves. His visual design, the tall pointed hat, the flowing gray beard, the walking staff, became so foundational to the visual languages of wizards and fantasy and science fiction that every staff-wielding mentor figure since, from Dumbledore to Zorinder, owes him a copyright. He guides Bilbo, then Frodo, through quests that determine the fate of Middle-earth. He faces the Balrog of Morgoth in the mines of Moria, falls and comes back more powerful. He is not the strongest fighter in the story, but his wisdom, his foresight, and his willingness to walk directly into danger to protect the small and powerless make him the moral center of Tolkien's entire legendarium. "You shall not pass" is not just a memorable line, it's a man choosing to be the line.
Number 3, The Doctor.
First materializing in British television in November 1963, the day after President John F. Kennedy's assassination, a detail that history has mostly glossed over, the Doctor is a centuries-old Time Lord from the planet Gallifrey who roams time and space in the TARDIS, a ship designed as a 1960s British police box that is famously bigger on the inside. The show's built-in solution to actor turnover is the regeneration. When the Doctor is mortally wounded, he transforms into an entirely new body and personality, carrying the same memories and values in a widely different face. One of the most elegant pieces of narrative engineering in television history, and it's allowed Doctor Who to continuously reinvent himself over 60 years without ever rebooting. What holds the Doctor together across every incarnation isn't a power set or a weapon, it's a philosophy. The Doctor solves problems with intellect, curiosity, and a deep, sometimes furious love for life in all of its forms. Violence is always the last resort. There's always another way, right up until there isn't. Then the show went dark for 16 years between 1989 and 2005. When it came back harder and stranger than before. That's not a franchise, that's a force of nature. No other character in science fiction history has run as long, regenerated as many times, or inspired as many generations of writers, showrunners, and geeks as the madman in a box out there traveling through time, solving problems the universe forgot to fix.
Number 2, Captain James T. Kirk.
Captain James Tiberius Kirk, born in Riverside, Iowa, commanding officer of the USS Enterprise, played by William Shatner when he first appeared on American television in September 1966, and arguably the most recognizable Starfleet captain the franchise has ever produced, Kirk's brand of command is built entirely on instinct, improvisation, and a willingness to bend Starfleet regulation the moment lives are on the line, which on the Enterprise is basically every Tuesday. Where Spock offers cold Vulcan logic, Kirk trusts his gut. Where the rulebook says hold, Kirk charges. He talks his way out of situations that should be impossible, bluffs his way past enemies that should be unstoppable, and somehow always finds a third option when the choice is supposed to be binary. He's become a cultural shorthand not just for confidence, but for a specific idea, that exploration itself is the heroic act, and going where no one has gone before is worth a cost, and the galaxy is better for having people in it who refuse to accept that some problems can't be solved. Star Trek has given us a lot of captains since 1966, and there's still only one Kirk. He is the most powerful figure on this list. He might even be the most human one. In a franchise built on the idea that humanity's best qualities are worth preserving across centuries, that counts for a great deal.
Number 1, Luke Skywalker.
The moment a lightsaber ignited in the darkened movie theater in the summer of 1977, pop culture changed permanently. Not shifted, changed. Luke Skywalker, farm boy from Tatooine, wide-eyed and restless and completely unprepared for what was coming, stood at the center of that change. A moisture farmer with dreams larger than the desert planet he lives on stumbles into a galactic civil war where the droids his family buys turn out to be carrying stolen Imperial plans, and from that completely ordinary beginning, everything unravels into something extraordinary. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Force, the Rebel Alliance, and then the revelation that the galaxy's most feared enforcer, the man in black armor and the respirator who just murdered his father figure in front of him, is his actual father. The original trilogy is the story of Luke becoming a Jedi, But the defining moment isn't the Death Star run. It isn't the battle on Bespin. It's the throne room scene in Return of the Jedi, where the Emperor is goading him to strike his father down, where the easy path is violence, and Luke chooses compassion instead. He throws away his saber. He chooses his father over his victory. And that choice, one farm boy refusing to become what the darkness needs him to be, saves the galaxy. Luke Skywalker isn't just Star Wars. He's the hero's journey itself, the version that Joseph Campbell was describing in 1949, before anyone knew what it looked like on screen. He shaped how an entire generation of storytellers told stories. He shaped how an entire generation of geeks understood what a hero was. There are arguments to be made for almost every other name on this list, but for this one, at least for me, there really isn't. And that's the top 20 geek heroes. And look, if your number one is Kirk or Ripley or the Doctor, I get it. There's a defensible position, and I will not report you to any authorities. Drop your picks in the comments, subscribe for more countdowns, and we'll see you in the next time on Geekville Radio. May the Force be with you, may your quickening find you ready, and may you always have a Scooby snack when you need one.